Good morning friends, this is S.M. Bhagwan, lecturer in English, Government Polytechnic, Solapur. In today's video lecture, we are going to learn unit number 3, dialogue writing. As we know, dialogue writing is an important part of learning any language. It is the easiest way to learn a particular language. As far as the English language is concerned, we may say that dialogue writing is done as per the situation, that is given situation. In dialogue writing, we have to assume some of the characters and also we have to assume some situations, that is imaginary situations we are going to assume. And on the basis of those situations, the conversation or the dialogue between the various characters is shown in a dialogue writing. So, while writing a dialogue writing, some points are very important that needs to be considered. At first, the relationship between the sender and the receiver are important. For example, the relationship may be formal or informal nature, or the situation may be formal or informal in nature. This is an important difference between a formal and informal communication, because we speak in different manner in formal communication and we speak differently in informal communication. So at first we have to understand what is the difference between the formal and informal degree of communication. If we are speaking with the colleagues, our boss, or we are in the meeting, lecture, practical, group discussion, these are the examples of formal communication situation. And if we are talking to our family members, our close friends, our dear colleagues, or tea time communication, these are the examples of informal communication. So as far as the dialogue writing is concerned, we need to understand the difference between the situation, that is various communication situation. It may be formal communication situation or informal communication situation. If the situation is formal, we start and end the dialogue or piece of dialogue in different manner, and if the situation, communication situation, is informal in nature, we start and end that piece of dialogue writing in a different manner. So it is important to know at first to know the difference between the formal and informal communication, also the formal and informal relationship between the sender and the receiver. Here in the next slide, we are going to see what is the definition of dialogue writing. A dialogue is nothing but it is simply a piece of conversation, sambhashan, between two or more people in a variety of communication situation. There can be different types of communication situations. When we speak at home, there is a different communication situation. When we speak in the bus, different communication situation. We speak to the shopkeeper, we speak to our teacher, we speak to our friends, and we can also speak to unknown people, unfamiliar people. There may be different types of communication situation with which we come across in a day, in our life, in our day-to-day life. So we need to understand these different communication situations and the difference between formal and informal nature of communication. So it is a useful tool. Dialogue writing is an useful tool of learning a language by using imaginary communication situation. Here one thing is important, that when we come across with the questions, when we read the questions on dialogue writing, at first we have to imagine, we have to visualize that communication situation in front of our eyes, and looking at that communication situation, we have to develop the dialogue in various manner. For effective dialogue writing, one must have the knowledge of contents and various steps used in a dialogue writing. That means there are three major contents in a dialogue writing, that is the beginning, the middle and the end. Proper ending should be there. Here are the steps in dialogue writing. The first step is greeting. Greeting, that means it is given according to time of the day, and it is also dependent on the relationship between the sender and the receiver, and also the type of communication, whether the type of communication is formal or informal, whether it is written or oral, whether the relationship between sender and receiver formal and informal, whether it is time of the day means whether it is morning, afternoon, evening, etc. According to these communication situations and parameters, we give the greetings, we write the greetings, that is good morning, good afternoon, good evening, hi, hello, etc. After that, one more important aspect or step in dialogue writing is development of dialogue. As I told you that dialogue writing is imaginary, and we have to imagine the communication situation between the sender and receiver, and according to the topic of discussion, our dialogue should be written, our dialogue should be communicated. So topic of discussion may be any of the topic that two people can deal with each other. So as per the topic of the discussion, we have to develop the dialogue. It should be like a question and answer, it should be like a discussion, or we can use various methods of dialogue writing. Assuming that here one thing is important, that grammatical constructions, we have to focus on the grammatical constructions, we have to write different types of sentences. Thirdly, closing sentences or the summary is very important. Again, it is also dependent on the relationship between the sender and the receiver, and also the type of communication, whether formal or informal type of communication. So closing statements are very also important. Here if we talk more about dialogue writing, we have greetings. It depends on the time of the day, that is good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and also the relationship between the sender and receiver is suppose it is informal in nature, we can say hi, hello, hey, what's up, and these are the examples. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, these are the examples of formal communication situation. Communication situation may be formal or informal, so that is very important. Now the development of dialogue, a dialogue should read like natural and spontaneous. It should read like natural and spontaneous. It should include punctuation marks like question marks, comma, single inverted comma, quotation mark, etc. There should be proper punctuation marks to make that piece of dialogue a real life dialogue. And we should also use the expressions like excuse me, may I know, sorry, thank you, please. Wherever it is necessary to use the words like or the expressions like these, it is important to show polite inquiries and responses. So one more thing is here is that the use of expressions like these words enhances the originality of the piece of the dialogue. So we should deliberately use such types of expression in our dialogue writing. So here we come at closing statements. In formal communication situation, expressions like have a nice day, it was a pleasure talking to you, thank you very much, etc. are used as closing statements. But in informal communication situation, the expressions like take care, goodbye, see you soon, bye bye, etc. are used to take a leave. So you might have understood that two qualities are important here, two parameters are important here. That is what one is the communication situation, whether it is formal or informal. Another one is the relationship between the sender and the receiver, whether it is formal or informal. all your piece of dialogue will be totally dependent on the formality and informality of the relationship between the sender and receiver, and also the formal or informal communication situation. So you must try to understand the difference between formal and informal communication so that you can easily write a dialogue on any situation. As far as English language is concerned, it is the easy way to organize sentences in different manner. Here, while writing the dialogue, you can write the sentences, different types of sentences could be there. Like you can ask the questions, assuming that one character is asking the question to another one. After that, the another character is answering those questions. Again, first character is asking some questions. Again, the another character is answering those questions. The dialogue can be developed in such a manner. Also, we can develop the dialogue assuming that two friends are discussing on a particular topic and they are giving more and more information about a particular topic. It could be written like this also. So we have to use different types of sentences like interrogative sentences, or the request, orders, commands, or many more types of sentences are there which we can write here to develop the dialogue, like the expressions like let's go, let's come, let's do, etc. These are the variety of sentences with which we can develop the dialogue. For that matter, we need to understand, we must have some examples before our eyes. So I have given you the example number 1. In this example, we come across with a dialogue between a teacher and a student about the student's excuse for not being able to participate in debate competition. You will find that at first we have to identify the formal, whether it is formal or informal communication, whether the relationship between the teacher and the student would it be formal or informal in nature. After identifying the formality and informality of a piece of dialogue, you can easily start your dialogue like good morning ma'am, good afternoon ma'am, good afternoon, and after that we can this is the main body of the dialogue. We can develop the dialogue easily, and we can end up the dialogue by saying that thank you very much madam, etc. It is very simple, but it needs practice. And so here I am giving one more example, a dialogue between two friends regarding the schedule of final exam. Here we can say that as this conversation is between two friends, so it is informal in nature. And so look at the topic of their discussion. It is about schedule of final exam. So we can assume that here we can give the dates also, we can give the reference of weeks or months also to talk about the schedule of final exam. So if we see the beginning of this dialogue, it is like hi, hi, hello, hello. It can be like this, and look at the end of the dialogue. It is bye, 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 take care, like this. These can be the expressions in such type of communication situation. Such means this is an example of informal communication. Again, one more example is there. It is the dialogue between two students of the same school who are meeting in their new institute. This is also informal type of dialogue, and it is between two students of the same school who are meeting in their new institute. So if we look at these pieces of dialogue, we can develop the different types of dialogues based on different types of communication. Here are some examples of here are some questions actually, and you practice these questions. You practice writing dialogue writing on based on these questions. And here one more sheet which is on the questions on dialogue writing. So you try to develop the dialogue on these questions that will help you to have command over English language. Thank you.